Hello and welcome. I am Sofiko and this is Creative Minds Speaking, a podcast where I have conversations with creative industry professionals, bringing into the spotlight those incredible people who are behind the scenes of art and entertainment is the main goal of this podcast. In today's episode, I am excited to chat with Connie Rivera. Currently, she works at Sony Music Mexico as a digital accounts specialist and also manages a singer. Hi, Connie. Thank you for joining today.
Hi, Sophie. Thank you for having me.
Usually, my first question is always about the background of the guest.
Okay.
So, could you please tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. So I've been working in the music industry, I guess, since I started university. So I grew up in Mexico City, and since I was a kid, I just kind of knew that I wanted to be in the music industry. Like, it was really weird. Obviously, nobody where I'm from, and it's like, I guess the same that like where you're from, is like nobody knows that the music industry is like a real job. So everybody, like, nobody got it, but I went and I moved out of the country to go do my degree in music business in the UK, and that's kind of where I started working in kind of everything. Like, I did live events, and I did management, and I did sync, and I did public. I just did everything I could to figure out what I really loved, and it turned out that that was A&R. Then I went to Berkeley, where I met you,
Yes.
and that was a big learning experience. I worked at the label there with the A&Rs, did projects with women in music, which we both loved, and well, then I ended up at Sony Music back in Mexico City. It was like an opportunity that kind of arose from, I don't even know, good timing, and I mean, obviously a lot of work. And I've been there for almost a year now.
That's amazing. So, it feels like you were very confident in your decision working in the music industry. And usually, people at this age don't really know what they want to do in their life. And you went to school for it already. When was the moment when you realized that you want to work in this industry?
I was honestly like 14, and it's a funny story, honestly. I don't know exactly when, obviously, but I was looking at a Jonas Brothers CD because I love the Jonas Brothers since ever since I was a kid. And I turned it, like, I flipped it on the backside, and remember CDs when they existed, they have a lot of info on the back. And part of that info was this man, like, that his like position was an A&R, and I had no idea what it was, but I was a fangirl and I wanted to know everybody in the Jonas Brothers team. So I went and I Googled this man, and that led me to literally the Berklee College of Music careers page where they described what an A&R does. And I read that and I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. Nobody can stop me.
Wow.
And I was like 14, but I decided, like, in that moment, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Period. That's on period.
Can you explain to those who don't know what A&R is?
Yeah, of course. So there's like different phases, I guess, to the A&R. You're the person at the lowest level, I suppose. The person that's like looking for and scouting in whatever way, whether that's with data or just searching and listening to endless hours of music or going to shows. You scout and look for new talent that you see has a potential. But the important part of it, for me at least, is that once you make that connection with that artist, is that you develop them musically, aesthetically, sonically with their brand for them to like kind of reach their highest potential. And it's very different with every artist, but that's what you do. Depends on what they need, but it's always just like looking out for them to be the best musician and performer and writer or whatever they are that they can be.
Mm-hmm. And who are your favorite A&R professionals?
Oh, I love that question. I think Wendy Goldstein, she's like the boss. She works at Republic Records. I think you might have to double check this, but I think she's VP at Republic Records, and she's A&R people like Ariana Grande, The Weeknd, the Jonas Brothers. But you know that that came after. No, but I've always admired her because if you hear her talk, she's very self-aware of like what she can and cannot do, and she treats every artist like a completely different project and person, which is super important to me because she makes superstars, but each of them is made so differently. Um, and then there's also the boss of all the bosses, David Geffen, but that's next level. And I have to give a special mention to Mr. Rob Dickens, who is a wonderful, but had an incredible career at Warner in the UK in the 90s and 2000s.
Great, thank you. So, was it hard for you to get a job once you graduated from music business program? Even two music business programs.
Yes. The answer is yes. It took a long time. I mean, it took a long time for many reasons. I think it always takes a while for most people. If you get a music business job right after you graduate, you're pretty lucky. It's not what usually happens, and it took a while because the reality of things is that you do need contacts even if you have the best education. Like, it is true that you need somebody on the inside for the most part to like put your foot in the door. um it was hard. Like, I must have sent 500 CVs to different companies. Obviously, I had a different situation. Just like you, I needed a visa to work where I originally wanted to work at. Um, and Sony came about from a high school friend that actually went to Berkeley too and worked at Sony here. And there was a position opening, and well, I mean, we spoke. And I kind of took the chance and I flew to Mexico to do my interviews. And I was like, this wasn't my original plan, but it's a very good plan right now. Like, it's a very good option. So it was hard, but I think mostly you need patience and more patience. So you don't panic and think that nothing's going to happen for you, because it will, but you got to be patient.
This is wise advice. So, how is your experience in Sony Mexico so far? What is your favorite part about working there and maybe not so favorite?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's been a real big learning experience. Obviously, I think me and everybody that kind of dreamt of the music industry as a kid, like, we always wanted to work at the majors. I feel like we share that. It's been very satisfying to say that I've been able to do that. Um, my favorite part, honestly, is that sometimes I'm working, even if it's not directly, right? Because obviously, the direct work that I do with the artist is with the Mexican catalog, but sometimes I will be sitting there working on a project from some of the favorite, like my favorite musicians growing up, or my favorite musicians now. Like, I love that I get to work with Miley Cyrus because I grew up absolutely adoring her. I love that I get to work with Harry Styles because I love him now. Also, I love that I get to work with like Billy Joel's catalog. There's some incredible things. My favorite music has always been pop music. So Sony has, Beyonce, like these things where sometimes I sit, yeah, and it's kind of surreal to be like, whoa, I'm actually a part of this indirectly, but it does give you that realization of like, when I was 14, if you had told me that I was going to be like listening to Miley's record before everybody else and working on its marketing, I wouldn't be like, that's the dream. Um, my least favorite part is that I don't want to speak for majors overall, but just specifically this in this country. There's a lot of old school mentalities that people are not able to let go of. Because I feel like they had great success many years ago. And Mexico, in particular, is a country that hasn't had any musical success in like 10 years. And I think the reason is because there's a lot of people that won't let go of old practices and they won't move forward. So we're kind of stuck and it's kind of frustrating.
Mm-hmm. So, you think it's mostly business side's fault rather than music itself?
Definitely, because even just in the year that I've been here, I've been able to find amazing artists that go unnoticed or go are left unattended, I guess, because there's really, the industry is kind of stuck in the past, in the early 2000s, where we had a lot of success internationally. But obviously now, Mexicans can't make reggaeton. We can't. That's not our thing. But they keep trying because they think, oh, that's what's working, so we should do it. But that's not the answer. If you ask anybody from the Caribbean what they think of Mexican reggaeton, they'll make fun of you. So it's not the way to go.
Got you. And that's another question that I wanted to ask. That when we think about Latin music, especially now, we mostly think about reggaeton because that's what we hear. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned, Mexico is not really part of that. I guess my question is, how would you evaluate Mexican music market right now, like in general?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I've thought about it hard and long this past year because I'm just like, there has to be something we can do. I think there's something happening that the world hasn't seen yet, but it's about to happen. There's this mix of regional Mexican, like you know it from forever, with urban trap and a little bit of rap and hip hop and a little bit of reggaeton. And it's very genuine to Mexico because we're using our words, and it comes from a genre that's literally only very much ours. Um, and it's starting to build. Like there's this really big trap urban regional Mexican. They're called corridos tumbados, and it's like this mix of trap and corridos, and it's really bubbling up. And some of these artists are on like the Billboard 100 and millions of streams and millions of views on YouTube. It's gonna take a little time, but I think that's where it's going because we're not trying to imitate anybody. It's kind of more like something organic that was created here. Obviously, taking inspiration from everywhere, but that's music. And it's gonna take a while, but it's exciting because I think it's our avenue and it worked. For example, if you look at Argentina, their trappers are becoming superstars now because they stayed true to themselves and they didn't try to do reggaeton. And that's my hope for Mexico, that we stay on our lane and we kill it without trying to be somebody else.
That's so interesting. I really hope so too. And when you look at Latin America, what countries would you say are the key players in the Latin music market?
For making music, I think Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Colombia, recently Chile and Argentina are jumping on that as well. But that's wherever, I mean, if you look at the global stars from Latin America, they're all from there at the minute. So they're killing it, and there's so many kids, not just singing, but like producing and videographers, and there's like this great like bubble of creativity coming from there. And I mean, obviously, you have to mention Miami, even though it's not technically in Latin America, it's kind of Latin America.
I mean, yes. And in the future, do you see yourself mostly working with Latin creatives or US, UK pop artists?
um I don't know. I think, like I said, like I told you, like growing up, I would rarely listen to any Latin artist. It just wasn't my thing. Now I love Latin music and I love it, and I'm super proud of the movement and everything. I don't know. Obviously, there would be a lot of pride into working with a Mexican artist that is global, but that's I just want to work with artists that have a global sound. So I don't care if you're from Mexico City or from Warsaw or from Essex. Like it doesn't matter to me. Like if you have that ability to just communicate with the world no matter where you're from, that's where I want to be. For the time being, obviously, like I am more focused on working with Latin artists because I'm right here, but I'm still working with artists in the UK, for example. So I just like good music. Doesn't matter where it comes from.
Yeah, definitely. We're here for good music. So you worked already in two different countries. You used to work in UK, now you're in Mexico. Do you see any big differences in working approach and like everything
Oh
else?
yeah, a million, like a million thousand. It's just so it's so different. Like, I can't even begin to explain to you. Like, just the countries are so different. So of course, everybody, like, we're raised differently. So the it's just crazy. I think the main difference, unfortunately, is what I just told you. Like, when I was working in the UK, it was very youth driven and future forward. Like, we were just thinking about what's next and what to do next, and how do we approach all the changes that are coming in a way that doesn't hold us back. And it was all like, let's go, like, let's do this. Whether here is very much the opposite, where it's like, oh, but we had this formula that was working very well, let's try and replicate this. And I share this with everybody that's under 30 at Sony. We've had this conversation so many times that we just feel a little bit stuck, because we know that there are things that need to be done, but we're not in the position of power yet to be making those decisions. Whereas in the UK, you, not just in the UK, but I feel like in the US as well, because I've seen it with my friends, you can be 24 and be in a position of decision making. You can be a project manager. You can be a, they there's this hierarchy. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but you have to, like, prove yourself to your elders or something like that for you to do anything. Um, and obviously, we understand that you have to work hard and prove yourself, but not like that, because it's just holding us back and it's holding the industry back. But that's not a problem in England. I don't think. At least I didn't experience it. It might be in some places.
Mm-hmm. Good to know. Thank you. Um, Now let's talk about your artist management thing.
Okay.
How did you find the artist that you're currently working with, and how is it going?
How's it going? Um, I found Natty. Her name's Natty, and I found her. I was managing another band, and they were playing a show, and she opened for, not for them, but for the whole lineup. She was the first one to go, and she sang this song called Astronaut, that to this day is like one of my favorite songs on the planet. It's not out though, but I just heard that song, and like, I talked to the girls that I was working with at the time in this, like, management company that we had, and I was just like, we have to work with her. And then, we moved forward with that, and it worked out fine. um I'm no longer with that company. I'm just working with Natty and another manager that, actually. Her name's Nicole. But it's going great. It's been a hard year. We had projects and plans that weren't able to go through because of what's going on. But it's going good. Natty is an incredible songwriter, and just this Friday she was playlisted in New Pop UK, so it's going good. Definitely going good, but we've been on a little bit of a pause from Corona, but that's okay.
That's unfortunate, but best of luck with Natty.
Thank you.
I've heard some of her songs, and she's a really good songwriter. Mm-mm-mm. Now, what are your life highlights?
My life highlights. Ooh, shit. Okay. Um okay, let me think about this question. That's a good question. There's been a lot of live highlights as a fan. So when I got to see many of my favorites in, just at their shows, like Beyonce and Billy Joel and Fleetwood Mac and, like, Journey, Paul McCartney, like, those are moments that were definitely highlights, because I'm always gonna be a fan of music. Doesn't matter, like, where I get to. And then, like, professionally, I think there's just been so many. I mean, definitely my first day at Sony was something that I was really proud of, because I was like, damn, I always wanted to work at a major. Um, we, I mean, you know about this, but the event we did at Berkeley with Women in Music for Yvette Knoll sure was incredible, because, like, I feel like it literally changed me, just everything she said and, like, the inspiration from that. Um, and I think for me, something that was very validating in a way was when I met Rob Dickens, and he became a mentor. For me, it was just kind of like okay, I'm not crazy. Like, I can actually do this, and there's somebody here that I admire so much that has just told me that they believe in me. So there's no reason for me not to believe in myself anymore. Like, there's no way I can't believe in me if I trust him and look up to him so much, you know? That was kind of like a moment where I was like, there's no more space for self doubt here. Like, you just, come on. You gotta do it.
I
Yeah.
think you should tell us Rob Dickens' story if you feel like sharing it because it's just incredible.
Okay, sure. So we were at Berkeley. We had an A&R module in our program. And I took it. It was my favorite class in my entire life. And Rob Dickens was a guest lecturer that week, and he was coming over to kind of like look at. We were supposed to present to him as if we were pitching a couple of artists to the label we worked at. And he was the judge, which was nerve wracking because the man is kind of a legend. Um, but I pitched and he loved it somehow. Like, one of the artists in particular that I presented to him. Um, and then he asked me for my details, and he just became this mentor to me. Like, I always went to him for advice. He really believed in me. Like, he I met with his nephew Jonathan Dickens, who is Adele's manager. It's just I was just it was surreal. Um but more than anything, like, more than he really gave me a lot of opportunities, but again, it's that belief that he put in me that really shifted things for me. I was like, nobody's gonna tell me that I can't do this anymore.
Exactly. I just love this story. I really do.
Me too.
Connie, how would you define a success for yourself?
I think for me, when I mean, the first step of it, I think, is being in love with what you do. So, well, I don't feel like I go to work. Like, I feel like I could do it for free if somebody asked me. Like, I sometimes I'm in shock that we get paid for working in the music industry because I literally, like, I'm so happy because I literally wanted it my whole life, and all of us like work so hard for it. So that in itself is success. But I think for me, what I really like, if we're dreaming big, like, I want to work with those artists that change the culture. Like, not just a big star, not just like big hits and selling and streaming, but like those people that really like penetrate culture and change it and shift it for the better. Like, that's when I'll feel like, okay, like, we made it. Cuz like, it's so important to me. Like, I feel like when I was growing up, music did so much for me as a person, and it moved me so much. So it's about like that full circle of when I'll be able to, through an artist, do the same for other kids. Like, that's going to be the real deal.
Connie, that's beautiful what you just said, and you're such a passionate music business professional. So I truly believe that you'll be able to find these artists, and together as a team, you would change culture for the better. Can't wait to see this. But for now, let's talk about something different. Do you think you could recommend to our listeners any song, movie, or and a book?
Ooh, okay. My book recommendation is, I just finished a book called This Is How You Lose a Time War. If you want to cry, read that. Um, my movie recommendation, I just watched Midsummer. I know a lot of people have seen it, but if you haven't, and you can I curse on your podcast?
Yeah, sure.
And you want to get fucked up in the head, then you should watch Midsummer. And song recommendation. Give me a second to check. You should listen to. Oh God, ruined by a notification. You should listen to. Okay, so there's this Mexican girl. She's indie. She's called Nana Bursat, and she has a song called Ice Coffee, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really good. You should go listen to Ice Coffee by Nana Bursat.
We will. Thank you. Next question. Who's your celebrity crush?
I have many. But the first person that came to my mind was Harry Styles. So I think we're gonna have to go with Harry Styles.
Okay, perfect. What is the most useless talent that you have?
um, I can make very good avocado. Well, not avocado, but like whack. Like I can make killer whack. Yeah.
I can't believe that you consider it as a useless talent, but okay. um, who inspires you the most? We kind of answered this question already, but still.
I think honestly, David Geffen, and I talked a little bit about him, but to me, he's somebody that not only did he completely revolutionize the music industry, but he did the same in film and in theater, and he just took entertainment and turned it into like a cultural weapon, but a good kind of weapon, not a weapon to destroy, but to create.
That's lovely. Thank you, Connie. Thank you for the chat. Is there anything else that you would like to share at the end? Maybe we missed something.
Thank you for having me. I mean, I guess the people who will be listening to this either are or want to be in the music industry. So just just be patient. I think especially at our age we get super desperate of, oh my god, I'm wasting time. Like what am I doing? I'm not where I want to be and I'm not having what I thought I was going to be having when I was 15, but when we were 15 we didn't know shit. And now we realize that things aren't linear, but success will come. Just be patient and talk to your friends and listen to songs and it'll be okay.
This is such a wise advice and probably the best way to end today's episode. Thank you for the chat, Connie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophie, for having me. It's been a really good chat.